Buongiorno. Can you hear me now? Chapter 1. The Man, the Myth, the Motorola. My name is Paolo Ferretti, and I am 73 years old, and I want everyone to know that I did not ask for any of this. I am a simple man. I wake at 6 in the morning. I make my coffee, real coffee, not the watery, pale sadness they sell in paper cups in other countries. I sit by the window of my apartment in Bologna, where the morning light comes in golden and slow across the terracotta rooftops, and I drink it standing up, the way God intended. Then I feed my neighbor's cat, Biscotto, who has decided that he lives at my place now, despite the fact that I have never once invited him. Then I go to the market. Then I come home. Then I argue with the television. This is a good life. This is a complete life. And then my daughter-in-law, Julia, called me from Germany and told me I needed to get on WhatsApp because it was the only way to stay in touch with Sam. And everything started going wrong. Samuel, though he hasn't gone by Samuel since he was about 7 years old, is my grandson. He is 24 now, which I find frankly impossible to believe, because I still remember carrying him on my shoulders at the feast of San Petronio, while he screamed with joy and yanked my hair with both fists. He grew up in Munich with his parents, after my son Marco took a job there when Sam was just 4. I visited as often as I could afford to, and Marco's family came back to Bologna for holidays, and for the first several years, everything was fine. But children absorb languages the way good bread absorbs olive oil, completely, greedily, and without apology. By the time Sam was 12, he was dreaming in German. By the time he was 16, he was thinking in German. And somewhere along the way, the Italian. My Italian, the language I had spoken to him since before he could answer back, the language I had sung to him and told him stories in, and sworn at terrible drivers with, slowly, quietly, slipped away from him like water through a sieve. Marco still speaks Italian at home, so Sam hasn't lost it entirely. He understands quite a bit when spoken to directly, slowly, with patience. But speaking it back, and especially writing it, that, as Sam explained to me once in a voice message full of apologetic laughter, was basically gone, no. Like, really gone. I'm so sorry. He speaks German to me now when we talk. Beautiful, confident, rapid-fire German, which to my ears sounds like someone trying to build a wardrobe while simultaneously reading the assembly instructions aloud. I mean no offense to the Germans. I'm sure it's a lovely language, but I did not learn it. I learned Italian. I learned a little bit of French once in 1974 because of a woman in Lyon, but that is a different story and not relevant here. So that is the situation. My grandson speaks German. I speak Italian, and somewhere in between us sits a phone app that my daughter-in-law installed on my Motorola with the slightly too large buttons. She bought it for me specifically because of the buttons, which I find both thoughtful and slightly insulting, called Google Translate. It's very simple, Paolo, Julia told me, during what I now think of as the fateful installation visit 2 years ago. She is a patient woman, Julia. A saint, really. You type what you want to say in Italian. You press this button, and it becomes German. Then you copy it and send it to Sam. Copy it how? I asked. You press and hold. And then I pressed and held, and now there are 17 apps open. That's okay, we'll close those. The point is, it's easy. Sam will love hearing from you more. And if Sam writes to me in German, you paste it into the translate box and press. What is paste? Is this different from copy? Julia looked at me with the expression of a woman who loves her family very, very much. and is drawing deeply on that love as a resource. "I'll write it all down," she said, "step by step." She wrote me 4 pages of instructions with diagrams. I laminated them. I keep them next to the phone. The first text I ever sent Sam through Google Translate was supposed to say, "I am very happy we can talk like this now." What it actually said, Sam told me later, wheezing with laughter over a voice call, was, "I am very satisfied by this communication channel." "You sound like a business email, no," he said. "The machine wrote it," I said. "I only told it what I wanted to say." "What did you type?" I typed, "Sono molto felice che possiamo parlare così adesso." There was a pause. No, Sam said. That's almost exactly right in Italian. The translate was just weird." "The translate is always weird," I said. "The translate is a disaster." But Sam was laughing. That big rolling laugh he's had since he was a boy. And I found that I didn't mind the disaster quite as much when I could hear it making him laugh. So this is where we began. Chapter 2, in which I attempt to say, "I miss you." The trouble with being 73 and living alone is that the missing accumulates. This is not a complaint. I want to be clear about that. I chose this life. After my wife Rosa passed away 8 years ago. 8 years. And still, sometimes I reach for the other side of the bed in the morning before I remember. I could have moved to Munich to be closer to Marco and Sam. Marco asked me. Sam asked me too, in that serious, earnest way he has always had, even as a little boy. No. Please come live near us. I don't like that you're so far. But I am a Bolognese man. My bones are made of this city. I know the smell of rain on these particular stones. I know which baker on Via Oberdan puts extra salt in his bread, and which one is secretly in love with the florist next door. I know Biscotto. I cannot transplant all of this, so I stayed. But the missing, yes, the missing is real. The missing is sharpest in the evenings, when the light goes amber and long across the kitchen table, and there is nobody to share the meal with. And it hits in strange, small moments. When I see a father carrying a child on his shoulders at the market, or when I hear a young man laugh loudly at nothing in particular, and it sounds, for just a second, like Sam. And so I text. I text badly, with the wrong glasses on half the time, squinting at a screen that seems to have been designed for people with considerably smaller fingers than mine. I text through Google Translate, which takes my heartfelt Italian and renders it into German with the warmth and elegance of a tax document. And I text persistently, sometimes sending 4 or 5 messages in a day, because I have come to understand that Sam reads all of them, even if he doesn't always respond immediately. And that is enough. The translation disasters became a kind of running joke between us. Sam started screenshotting the best ones and sending them back to me. The one that perhaps started the legend. The one that Marco now claims should be framed and put on the wall. Happened on a Tuesday in November. I had been feeling, that week, the particular sharpness of missing that arrives in the cold weather. November in Bologna is gray and damp, and without Rosa, the apartment feels larger than it should. And Biscotto had been indifferent to me all morning, which did not help. I sat down with my phone and my laminated instructions, and I wanted to say something true. Not "how are you" or "did you eat?" Something that cut through the distance. I wanted to say, "I miss you." Simple. 3 words in Italian. Mi manchi. Which, as I always find poetic, literally means, "You are missing to me." Because in Italian, it is not I who do the missing. It is you who are absent from me. I think this is very beautiful. I have never been able to explain this to Sam because of the language situation, but I hold on to it privately. So I opened Google Translate. I typed "mi manchi," my longing, my grandson. You are missing to me. And I pressed the button, and I copied whatever it gave me and sent it to Sam before I could second-guess myself. I then made lunch and tried not to think about how quiet the apartment was. About an hour later, my phone buzzed. Sam had sent back a voice message. I pressed play. For about 4 seconds, I heard only the sound of my grandson trying and failing to breathe normally. Then he dissolved completely into laughter. Not polite laughter. Not quiet laughter. The full, helpless, tear-inducing laughter of a man who has just encountered something so absurd that his body has lost the ability to function. No, he finally managed, gasping. No. What did you send me? I had sent him. An old man is very lonely. I stared at this for a long time. I had wanted to say, "You are missing from me." I had typed, "I miss you." The machine had apparently looked at these simple words. Looked at me, 73, widower, living alone in Bologna with a cat that isn't even mine, and decided that the most accurate German translation was a description of my entire life situation. It's not wrong, I said out loud to nobody, but I was smiling. I sent Sam a voice message back. The machine told the truth, I said in Italian, but what I meant was "mi manchi." You know what that means, yes? A pause. Then his voice came back, softer. "Yeah, no," he said in German. "I know what it means." I understood that much. From there, the translation disasters became something I almost looked forward to. There was the time I tried to ask if he'd found a nice girl to date, and the machine apparently produced something that Sam told me meant, "Have you completed your romantic procurement?" There was the time I wanted to say, "You're growing into such a fine man," and it came out, according to Sam, as, "Your maturation process is proceeding well." There was the time I tried to send a simple "good morning," and it arrived, inexplicably, as something about meteorological conditions, which Sam greeted with a row of crying, laughing faces that I had to ask Marco to explain to me. "Why are they laughing and crying at the same time?" I asked Marco. "Because something is very funny, Papa." That seems contradictory. That's kind of the point. My personal favorite. And I say this as a man who did not enjoy it at the time, but has come to appreciate it, was the "have you eaten" incident. Food, for me, is not a trivial thing. Food is love. Food is the primary language through which I have expressed care for every person I have ever been close to. Rosa used to say I showed emotions through pasta the way other men showed them through grand gestures, and she was right. When Sam was small and staying with us in the summers, I cooked for him every day. Fresh tagliatelle, ribollita from my mother's recipe, roasted chicken with rosemary and lemon. Watching him eat, watching him close his eyes when something was particularly good, the way Rosa used to do, was one of the great joys of my life. I cannot cook for Sam anymore. He is in Munich, and I am in Bologna, and that is simply a fact. But I can ask if he's eaten. It is the smallest version of the same impulse. So one evening, I typed, "Hai mangiato?" Have you eaten? Simple. Ancient. The first question every Italian grandmother and grandfather asks, because it means, are you taken care of? Are you warm? Is someone looking after you the way I would if I could? The machine thought about this for a moment and then produced, in German, the following. Have you consumed your nutrients? Sam sent me back a string of messages in rapid German that I fed back into the Translate app one by one. The app rendered them in sequence as, "No, I cannot. I am deceased. Please tell me you didn't mean it like that." And finally, "I am calling the science department of my university to inform them that my grandfather is conducting nutritional studies." I sent back, "I only wanted to know if you ate dinner." He sent back a voice message of himself laughing so hard he dropped the phone. I heard it hit something. A table, possibly. And then him saying, in German, I'm sorry, I love you so much. Are you still there?" I was still there. I am always still there. Chapter 3, in which I become a student. Now here is something that not many people know about me. I am not a man who accepts defeat easily. I fought with my landlord for 11 years over a damp patch on the kitchen ceiling before he finally fixed it. I learned to make Rosa's mother's sugo from scratch after Rosa passed, because it had always been Rosa's job, and I refused to let the recipe die with her. And it took me 4 months and approximately 15 terrible batches before I got it right. I once reassembled an entire bicycle from parts I found at a weekend market, because the man selling them said it couldn't be done. I have it in my shed. It is not a good bicycle, but it is done. So when Google Translate kept making a fool of me, I did not give up on Google Translate. I decided to get better at Google Translate. This was perhaps a tactical error. The problem, I had come to understand, was that the machine was translating my Italian too literally. The phrases I used, mi manchi, hai mangiato, the kind of warm shorthand that families use with each other, were apparently confusing it. Julia had told me this. The machine is better with formal Italian than dialect or colloquial expressions, she explained. Try to write things more formally. More formally, I repeated. Yes. Full sentences. Standard Italian. I decided to take this seriously. I also decided, and this is where things escalated, that I should learn a little German. Not fluent German. Not good German. Just enough to say a few things that Sam would recognize without needing to be translated. A grandfather's worth of German. A handful of phrases, carefully memorized, that I could deploy at key moments, like small gifts. I bought a book, Deutsch für Anfänger, German for Beginners. It has a cartoon man on the cover who appears deeply enthusiastic about being a beginner, which I found irritating, but the price was reasonable. I also, on the advice of my neighbor, Signora Colombo, who is 68 and has recently discovered the internet with the enthusiasm of someone who has been led into a very large party, found something called YouTube, where there were videos of people teaching German. There is a young woman, Signora Colombo told me, leaning over my fence with the air of someone sharing important intelligence, who teaches German, and she is very clear, and she speaks slowly, and she has good hair. I have been watching her. Why are you learning German? I asked. I'm not. I just like her videos. But she's very good for learning German. I started watching the videos. Here is what I learned about German in the first week. German has 3 genders for nouns: masculine, feminine, and neuter. And the logic for which noun gets which gender appears to have been determined by someone throwing darts at a wall in the dark. The word for girl, Mädchen, is neuter. The word for moon, Mond, is masculine. The word for sun, Sonne, is feminine. I spent an entire afternoon trying to understand this, and ended up more confused than when I started. German puts the verb at the end of the sentence in certain constructions, which means you have to hold all the other words in your head while waiting to find out what the sentence is actually doing. This felt, to me, like someone describing an elaborate recipe and only telling you what you're cooking at the very last moment. You have been assembling ingredients for a full minute, and then soup, or perhaps a shoe. You don't know until the end. There are also compound nouns, where the Germans take several words and smash them together into one magnificent, terrifying word. Sam had once, laughing, explained one of his favorites to me. Donaudampfschifffahrtsgesellschaftskapitän, which means, apparently, the captain of a Danube steamship company. One word. I stared at this for so long that Biscotto came to check on me. But I kept going. I wrote things down in a little notebook. I practiced saying Guten Morgen and Wie geht es dir and Ich liebe dich, which I knew already, roughly, because I am not entirely uneducated, and a few other small things. I practiced on Biscotto, who was largely indifferent, but occasionally blinked at me in a way that felt encouraging. I told nobody I was doing this. I wanted it to be a surprise. In the meantime, my texting with Sam continued, disasters and all. I had started, following Julia's advice, writing more formally. This helped somewhat. I miss you. There came, in my messages, something more like, I find myself thinking of you with great frequency and affection, which the machine turned into German that Sam said was a bit stiff, no, like a formal letter, but sweet. The food questions became elaborate sentences about Sam's dietary habits and whether he was maintaining adequate nourishment, which he found hilarious, but responded to faithfully, sending me pictures of his meals. Plates of bratwurst and schnitzel, and things that looked, to my Bolognese eyes, like they needed help, with a little Italian caption. Mangiato, nonno. Eaten, grandfather. He was learning too, in his way. Just a word at a time, reclaiming pieces of what he'd lost. I also discovered, during this period, that I could send voice messages with the Translate app's help. I could say something in Italian, and it would give me an audio rendering in German that I could send. This was a mixed success. The voice was robotic and completely flat, with no emotion whatsoever. So that when I sent Sam a voice message saying, I am so proud of you, you have become such a wonderful young man, it arrived, according to Sam, sounding like a German government announcement about public transportation. I knew it was you, though, Sam told me, laughing. Immediately. Nobody else would send me a robot message about being proud of me. The robot has my feelings, I said in Italian. Even if it doesn't sound like it. I know, no. I always know. Chapter 4, in which Sam suggests video calls, and I enter a mild crisis. It was Sam who first raised the idea of video calls. He sent it as a text, in German, which I translated in the app. The translation I got back was something like, Grandfather, I have been considering that visual communication via screen would allow us greater emotional proximity than written messages. Would you be open to trying this? I sat with this for a moment. Then I wrote back, very carefully, in formal Italian. The machine translated your message in a very official way. Are you saying you want to do a video call? Sam sent back 3 laughing, crying faces, which by now I knew meant yes. Here was my fear. Let me explain it properly. When we text, there is a buffer. I type in Italian. The machine tries its best. Sam reads something approximately like what I meant, and fills in the gaps with affection and context. It works, mostly. There is space for correction. There is time. But a video call is real time. No buffer. I would speak Italian. In my Italian, fast and full of Bolognese idiom, the way I have spoken my whole life. And Sam would try to follow. And Sam's German has become so natural to him that when he is emotional or excited, he sometimes slips into it entirely without realizing. And I would be there, on the screen, watching his face, wanting to reach through the phone and ruffle his hair the way I used to when he was small. And neither of us would be able to say what we actually meant. I told Marco about my hesitation. My son listened, said nothing for a moment, and then said, in the gentle way he has always had, "Papa, Sam will see your face. That matters more than you think. He won't understand me. He'll understand you. That's different." I thought about this for 3 days. Then I thought about how, when Sam was 4 years old, and we would take walks through the Giardini Margherita, he used to reach up and hold my hand with his whole small fist, and it didn't matter that he wasn't talking much yet. The hand was enough. The being there was enough. Then I thought, I have been learning German for 6 weeks. I have in my notebook approximately 22 phrases. This is not fluency. This is barely a foothold. But perhaps it is enough for a beginning. I texted Sam back. Through the Translate app, my message came out as, "I accept your proposal for visual communication. I must warn you that I will be speaking Italian, and therefore you may require patience." Sam replied instantly, No, I will always have patience for you." Also, the robot voice said that so formally, lol. Marco had to explain, lol, to me. I found it unsatisfying as an abbreviation. If something is funny, one should say so properly. We scheduled the call for Saturday afternoon. I prepared for this call the way I once prepared for important occasions, the way I used to prepare for Rosa's family dinners in the early years of our marriage, when I was trying to make a good impression. I cleaned the apartment. I changed my shirt twice. I positioned myself at the kitchen table because the light there is good in the afternoon, and I did not want to look like a ghost on the screen. I set up the laminated instructions next to the phone. I opened my German notebook to the pages I had marked, and then I opened Google Translate one more time to write him one pre-call message. I wanted to say, "I'm a little nervous, but I'm very happy." I typed it carefully. I checked it. I sent it. It arrived, Sam told me later, as, "I am experiencing mild operational anxiety. However, my satisfaction levels are elevated." Sam sent back a voice message immediately. He was laughing, but underneath the laugh was something else. Something warmer. No, he said. You and your robot messages. I'll see you in 10 minutes. And for the record, a pause. And then the careful, slightly formal Italian of someone reaching back into a language they learned as a small child. Anch'io sono molto felice. I am very happy too. I sat with that for a moment. His Italian, slower than mine, with German vowels at the edges, slightly unsure of itself, was the most beautiful thing I had heard in a long time. I pressed call. Chapter 5. The thing that doesn't need a translation. The first thing Sam said when his face appeared on my screen was, No. And the first thing I said was, "You need a haircut." This is, I think, the most Italian response possible to seeing your grandson for the first time on a video call. And I stand by it completely. Sam touched his hair, which was, in fairness, quite long, and laughed. "Good to see you too, Nono. I can see everything now," I said in Italian. Before, with the texts, I could imagine you however I liked. Now I see the truth. The truth needs a barber. He was grinning. Wide and easy, the way he always grins, the way his father grins, the way Rosa used to say could charm the paint off a wall. Your apartment looks the same, he said in German. He speaks it the way the young speak it, quickly, musically, in a rhythm I can't quite follow, but that I'm learning to hear the shape of. I can see the tile in the kitchen. Is that the same tile from when I was little? Of course it's the same tile. The tile is excellent. The tile will outlast us all. He laughed again. I don't think I understood all of that, but the tone was very you. That's good, I said. The tone should be very me. We looked at each other for a moment. Just looked. It had been. I was trying to remember. Almost 8 months since I had seen his face, at Marco's birthday in April, when the whole family had come to Bologna for a long weekend. 8 months of texts and voice messages and translated disasters. 8 months of, have you consumed your nutrients? And, an old man is very lonely. And crying laughing faces. And voice recordings that sounded like public transportation announcements. He had grown his hair. There were faint shadows under his eyes. He was working long hours. I knew this from Marco. He had started a new job at an engineering firm in Munich, and he was throwing himself into it the way Ferretti men always throw themselves into things, which is to say recklessly and with great enthusiasm and too little sleep. But his eyes were the same. Dark, a little serious when he wasn't laughing. Rosa's eyes. She had been right when she said, he got the best of all of us. I have been learning German, I announced. Sam blinked. What? German. I have been learning it. For 6 weeks. I have a book with a very annoying man on the cover. I held up the notebook. I have notes. Sam stared at me through the screen with an expression that I can only describe as the face of a man who has been given a gift he didn't expect and isn't sure yet what to do with it. No, he said quietly. I cannot say much, I warned him. And what I say is probably wrong. The YouTuber with the good hair tries her best. But German is unreasonable, and I am 73. There's a YouTuber with good hair? Your cousin, your neighbor. Signora Colombo recommended her. That is not the point. The point is, I looked down at my notebook, found the page I had marked. The point is, Guten Tag, Sam. Wie geht es dir? There was a silence. Then Sam covered his face with both hands. Sam? I said. Was that wrong? The pronunciation? No. His voice was muffled behind his hands. He lowered them. His eyes were bright. No, the pronunciation was. It was really good, actually. It was really good. I practiced on the cat. You. He made a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and something else. You practiced your German on the cat? Biscotto is a good listener. He doesn't speak German either, so he can't judge. Sam laughed. The full laugh, the rolling one, the one that goes all the way up. And I watched it happen on my screen in real time and felt something unknot in my chest that I hadn't realized was knotted. Okay, he said, composing himself. What else have you got? I consulted the notebook. Ich vermisse dich, I said. This means, I miss you. Sam went still. Is that right? I checked. I looked it up many times. I wanted to be sure I had it right. That's right, no, he said softly. That's exactly right. Good. I put the notebook down. The machine kept making a mess of it. An old man is very lonely, which is also true, but is not the same thing. I wanted to say the right thing, so I learned how. Sam was quiet for a moment. Outside my window, Bologna was doing its late afternoon thing, the light going gold, the pigeons starting their evening arguments, someone's radio playing something old and scratchy from a window somewhere up the street. No, Sam said at last. Can I say something? You can always say something. I might not understand it. Yeah. He paused, seeming to search for the right words, or perhaps the right version of himself to say them. When he spoke again, it was in German, and he spoke slowly and clearly, as though he were aware that I was listening harder than usual, paying attention to every syllable. He spoke in German, but he chose words. I caught enough, between my 6 weeks of learning and the fact that I have been hearing his voice my whole life and know its rhythms, even when I don't know its meaning. He chose words that were simple and plain, and meant to cross the distance without any machine help at all. I caught no. I caught something that sounded like immer, always. I caught Liebe, love. I caught Übersetzen, which I had learned meant translate. And I caught fühlen, which I had written in my notebook just last week, next to the word it meant in Italian. Sentire. To feel. I didn't need the full translation. I got it anyway, a few minutes later, when Sam switched to his careful, German-accented Italian to say it again. Grandpa, we may not be fluent in each other's languages, but love, it doesn't need a translation. I can always feel how much you love me. I looked at my grandson through a screen, across several hundred kilometers of Alps and autumn and all the accumulated distance that life puts between people. And I thought about Rosa telling me that I loved through cooking. I thought about 4 pages of laminated instructions and a cartoonishly enthusiastic beginner on the cover of a book, and a YouTube woman with good hair and a cat named Biscotto, who had tolerated my German practice with complete feline dignity. I thought about mi manchi, you are missing from me, and how no machine had ever managed to say that right, and how, it turned out, it didn't need to. You know what I tried to say, I said in Italian. Slowly, clearly, looking right at his face. Every time the machine made a mess of it. You always knew. Always, Sam said. Every weird robot message. Every, have you consumed your nutrients? Every, an old man is very lonely. He grinned. I knew. Good. I cleared my throat, because I am a Bolognese man of 73, and there are limits to how openly I will be emotional on a Saturday afternoon. Now, before we do anything else, have you eaten today? Sam burst out laughing. Yes, no. What did you eat? Some pasta. What kind? I don't know. The kind from a packet. From a packet? No. Sam, I said, very seriously. I am going to teach you to make tagliatelle. On this screen. Next Saturday. You will get the ingredients this week. I will send you the list. It's in Italian, and the machine will translate it. And it will probably say something insane like, procure the following agricultural products, but you will understand what I mean. And you will get the ingredients. And we will cook together, yes? Sam was still laughing, but he was nodding. Yes, nonno. Next Saturday. Good. I sat back. Outside, the radio from up the street had shifted to something slow and familiar, something that had played on summer evenings when Sam was small and used to fall asleep in the armchair in this very kitchen, too tired after a day of running through the market to make it to bed. Now tell me about the job. and speak slowly. You could just use the app. I don't need the app for this. Talk to me. I'll figure it out. He talked. I listened. I understood maybe half. Less than half, honestly. The technical words defeated me entirely. But I understood the way his voice lifted when he described a project he was proud of. And I understood the little frustration that crept in when he mentioned a difficult colleague. And I understood when he said something and then looked at me sideways to check if I'd followed. And I nodded, and he smiled and kept going. We talked for 2 hours. At some point, I made coffee. I held the cup up to the camera, and Sam pointed at it and said, in Italian, "Voglio un caffè." I want a coffee. And I said the Italian was perfect, and he looked pleased with himself. In exactly the way he looked pleased with himself at 6 years old, when he managed to tie his own shoes correctly. At some point, Biscotto appeared and jumped onto the table and sat directly in front of the camera, giving Sam nothing but a close-up of gray fur and profound indifference. "Is that?" Sam started. "Biscotto. He is not my cat. He lives here anyway. He's huge. He eats very well. I may have been giving him too much of my tuna. No. He was looking at me." Sam put his face in his hands again, but he was laughing. When we finally said goodbye, and it took a while, the way goodbyes always take a while in Italian families, a long series of, "Okay then," and, "Yes, all right," and, "Speak soon," that extends for approximately 15 minutes before anyone actually hangs up. Sam looked at me from the screen and said, carefully in Italian, "Grazie nonno, per tutto." Thank you, grandfather, for everything. "Per cosa?" I asked. "For what?" He waved his hand, a gesture that somehow encompassed the last 2 years of terrible translations and robot voices, and consumed nutrients and all of it. "For trying so hard," he said. "You're my grandson," I said. "What else would I do?" He smiled. The screen went dark. I sat at the kitchen table for a while after, with the last of my cold coffee and the late afternoon light, and Biscotto, who had apparently decided to be affectionate now that the call was over, and was butting his enormous head against my hand with great determination. I picked up my phone. I opened Google Translate. I typed, very carefully, in formal Italian, the straightest sentence I could manage. "Next Saturday, I will teach my grandson to make pasta. I am looking forward to it very much." The machine considered this and produced in German. "On the forthcoming Saturday, I will facilitate the education of my grandson in the preparation of traditional pasta-based cuisine. My anticipation is considerable." I stared at this. Then I put the phone down, picked up Biscotto with some difficulty. He is a very heavy cat, and said, to no one in particular, "Considerable. Yes. That will do." Outside, Bologna went on in its ancient, golden, noisy way. The pigeons argued. The radio played. Somewhere across the Alps in the autumn, my grandson was probably already texting his father to say the call had gone well. And somewhere in the gap between Italian and German, between "Mi manchi" and "Ich vermisse dich," between an old man and his phone, and all his careful, clumsy, beautiful effort, somewhere in all of that, something had been perfectly understood all along.